All right, let's do it. If you're at all familiar with Monty Python, you probably heard the Philosopher song, which is about what alcoholics all philosophers are. Now imagine that song without the wit or charm and performed by someone so very desperate to be seen as a philosopher. And you have this. No, your eyes aren't deceiving you. That's Dr. Jeep, cosplaying as someone who's actually done an honest day's work ever in their life. Interesting to note is that he does have himself posited as Employee of the Month, which I can assure you in any restaurant he would not be. He'd be crying in the walk-in. He must have just finished Maps of Meaning. I did the exact same thing when it was over.
For the love of God, man, I want to be a resentful taco delivery boy.
This dude actually included that line in a video wherein he is dressed as a taco guy from Taco Gulag, no less. Little on the nose, Jeep? Or such a pretentious shit?
There's a real hell on earth. You know, I had a guy come up to me.
We'll drink and drink and drink.
I'm not going to include too much of the actual song itself. Just a little snippet so you can get the flavor for it. But notice, CDC study, drink, don't think. Having read 12 Rules for Life and Maps of Meaning, I can assure you that you'd be better off drinking. Now we get some footage of Peterson enjoying himself watching alcoholics on TV. I'm not sure why. Get to the song, man. What's this all about? Plot twist, it's about philosophers Jeep doesn't like. You ready for this?
Michel Foucault was a genuine pervert.
Yeah.
And it made him awful sad. He invented philosophical doctrines designed to drive us all quite mad.
Now, I am not about to sit here and defend Foucault's views on children and consent. He was a pessimistic and shitty man who nonetheless wrote some very important things about power, knowledge, and how one affects the other. Jeep is equating some things that aren't really related here. Which, to be fair, is the Petersonian way.
Critical racists now annoy us. They accuse him.
Did this dude really just cut from the green-haired screaming lib that they all pretend likes to exist to his own daughter taking shots? Yeah, he did.
Satirize, multiplying all around us.
That might be one of my favorite shots of this entire thing. You've got Puppet Peterson and Dave Rubin, who is a puppet for right-wing ideology. They're talking to each other as if it's a perfectly normal thing. I mean, it does happen.
This time we cut them down.
And once again, Foucault dancing with the little puppet children. You know, we get it, Peterson. He was a bad man. Nobody's arguing that. You'd be hard-pressed to find a single intellectual throughout history that wasn't also a piece of shit. Look at you, for example. Though intellectual might be stretching it a little bit.
Compared to Butler, we all pray she'll fade away.
Now you'll notice with Judith Butler, he just wants her to fade away so that way all these gender and queer theories that she espouses will just vanish, and Peterson won't have to repeatedly get up on stage and fail to have a response to any of them that means anything. It's probably enough to say that her work was influenced by Foucault so that you can just dismiss her out of hand, right, Jeep?
We'll drink and drink and drink.
Immanuel Kant was a real pissant. It was it's the Monty Python Philosopher song, except specifically targeted at philosophers you don't like. And you may take issue with gender theory, critical race theory, queer theory, intersectionality, and all of that. But when your response to it is, the dragon of the feminine chaos, nobody's going to take you seriously. Well, nobody except those attempting to disguise their bigotry through intellectual means, which is, let's be fair, your target audience.
Richard Rorty.
Rorty argued that knowledge was not enough to stop people from declaring other groups subhuman, and that sentimentality and empathy were necessary in order to create global solidarity. So of course Peterson hates that because it goes directly against his whole hierarchy of lobsters at the top and fucking minorities at the bottom, right?
Is truly not help.
Is there something you want to tell us, Jeep? Trying out for a new Saw movie or calling delivery guys pigs? What are you getting at here? This thing is such a fever dream.
I represented the delivery driver as a pig because they are subhuman in their effort to get by in a capitalist hellscape of a world, which is, of course, by necessity, the hierarchy of the chaotic feminine and can only be redeemed by the masculine.
Is he delivering beef and bourbon?
With his assurance, nothing's real.
Oh man, I should have let that play out a moment because you're putting lipstick on a pig there. Clearly a reference back to Rorty's philosophy and your feelings about it. Again, very on the nose. You don't trust your audience to be able to understand a metaphor, do you? Also, I got $5 says you're gonna fuck that pig delivery driver. $5.
Call me pig.
Metaphysical exploration of reality is a philosophical concept, goes all the way back to Aristotle. It's literally the foundational underpinning of all philosophy. You can take issue with it all you want, Jordan, but the reality of the situation is that none of us, literally none of us, have the answer to that one. And so, for better or worse, we have given power and praise to those capable of thinking about it at a certain level, whether that be philosophers, priests, what have you, anyone claiming to have that answer. And there's no book, no paper that actually contains it, regardless of what you want to say. There's as much evidence for the existence of God as there is for the idea that we're all living in a simulation. Though, given the quality of the simulation, I'd be forced to conclude it's probably run by one of Elon's descendants who's named after the sound a printer makes shortly before it explodes.
What of hunger?
What?
Yeah, I've been asking myself that this whole fucking video. Tell me, were you contractually obligated to add that shot of Benji in there since he's paying your bills? Well, not all of your bills. You also have that private Patreon amount, which you've shut down so that nobody knows exactly how much you're fleecing them for.
Skeptic?
Mr. Skeptic.
When a child lacks a meal.
Now see, this part's very interesting to me because your response to Rorty's questions about the nature of reality itself is, what about hunger when a child lacks a meal? What about it, Jordan? Are we feeding those kids? We should definitely be feeding those kids. And yet every word that comes out of your mouth is in service of an ideology that would refuse to feed those children. Even more so when we add in the whole idea of Judeo-Christian Western values that you're always banging on about. Imagine believing you were following the teachings of Christ to insist on prayer in schools, but not free school lunch. You can't convince me that you give a shit about any kid except as a philosophical point to argue. Quick, I need a way to discredit Rorty. Let's pretend we give a shit about starving kids.
Now in this next scene, I want my puppet to have fake tears running down its face.
And like, you're not even hiding it anymore. Those puppet tears are as real as the tears you shed over actual starving children. We all know the only kid that makes you cry is Pinocchio. Which, do you want to talk about why that is? You need a hug? Not going to be the one to give it to you, but if you need one, you know.
What's the hunger? Celebrated as a stage.
Now hold on here, Jeep, because you and Dworkin have a couple of points in common. She's very much anti-pornography, anti-sex work. Ideas you too espouse. So what's your issue with her? The fact that she's a feminist? Or is it because she frames these stances through the prism of the patriarchy? A patriarchy that you insist either doesn't exist or is the true and proper way that things should go. It's really hard to say. You have this habit of saying a whole lot and nothing at all at the same time. Then when pressed and pinned down on those positions, you retreat to it's Mott and Bailey shit. In any case, that's just weird to me because I know you were celebrating the large number of Muslims who had suddenly started following you, despite the fact that on a faith level, you fundamentally disagree. Besides all of that, what someone once did has no bearing on their ability to think critically or to share those thoughts. Well, we shouldn't listen to Dworkin because she was once a hooker. Well, you were once in a benzo coma. Ah, yes, white fragility. Of course you're going to take issue with that because there is nothing less fragile than a grown man writing an entire song to shit talk a bunch of philosophers that disagree with him while pretending to be a fast food employee and dancing poorly to a puppet show on his TV. That's all cool and normal. Nothing fragile there at all. How do we know who's at the top of the hierarchy? How does hierarchy exist without defining people by groups? Do you ever stop to think about the shit that comes out of your mouth? Also, what's her place? What are you suggesting? We put her down at the bottom of the hierarchy? She's not part of the in-group Jeep? Oh, puppet Jeep looking for lobsters down there? For this last bit of the video, Peterson's gonna treat us to a reasonable approximation of his O-face and also suit up as maybe a member of Antifa, although in Peterson's case, it would just be pho. It would 100% just pho. He's gonna go out there with his Molotovs and his hoodie and defend the status quo like nobody's fucking business. I realize, having sat through this whole thing a couple times now, that Peterson put this out in an attempt to be seen as edgy and cool. It's like how all of his tweets just personify Joker energy. But once again, doing nothing more than revealing to all of us how shallow his analysis of everything truly is. How pathetic the hierarchy atop which he wishes to stand is. Congratulations, Jordan. You're the lobster king of mediocre and talentless angry men. You know the ones you're lying to for profit. The ones that pay your bills.